Hey guys, I'm Jose and welcome to this new tutorial in Unity. Today we're going to see the basics of how to work with a custom user interface. So as I've been doing in the past tutorials, I'm going to start working with this kind of plain scene where I have a first-person controller in the scene. Um, and we're going to just start working from here, right? So let's start by creating a new game object, an empty game object this time, right? So we're going to create a new game object, then we're going to rename it GUI, like user interface, right? And this doesn't have any geometry right now. It's just kind of an empty game object, but we're going to use it for scripting our user interface here. So I'm going to go into my scripts and create a new JavaScript, right? And I'm going to call it tutorial 05, right? And I'm going to drag this guy to the GUI, right? So there we go. So let's open that script, and then we have our, so we had tutorial 4 there, but let's do tutorial 5 this time. Right, so we're gonna see just a few elements, and how to bring them in the screen, and how they work, and then the next tutorial we're gonna see how to wire them to some geometry and start working between object to object interaction. Right, so when you want to work on the user interface, you could actually access a custom function in Unity that it's on GUI, so on GUI, right, like that. And then this function would allow us to call GUI elements into the screen, and they would actually work as a 2D element that is kind of and basically it makes it really great to just be able to have buttons or sliders and labels and all sorts of things as a user interface. Later we will see how to customize those, the graphics of them, but for now the simple default ones are pretty good. So let's start with that. So we could say GUI label to start, right? And you see that I get the auto completion, and then I can go to rectangle. I'm going to do here two coordinates, 25, 25, and then the width and the height. And I'm gonna, so that's the first variable that I need, this rectangle. And the second variable I'm gonna work with, it's the name of the label, right? So label requires this first rectangle to operate on, and then what do I want to say? I'm gonna say plethora project, right? .com. So that's looking pretty good. Let's close it and let's check. I'm gonna save it, and let's check that this label is actually working, right? So first thing is just, you see it's working, but the rectangle that we're working on, it's not big enough to display the letters, right? Basically the rectangle, it's determining the area in which I'm gonna operate, so that's good to know. Let's check that, and let's give it a bigger length. Maybe 120 should be enough. And you see that when we have that length of 120, we can actually work pretty well with the letters and the string of the text that we are kind of working on, right? So so that's good. Let's do some other operation. Let's do also a toggle switch. A toggle switch is very useful to turn things on and off. So the toggle switch is actually like it represents a Boolean statement. So the very best way of just doing that is putting it in an if statement already, right? So if GUI dot sorry, I'm gonna do a button first, just because. So button, and we're gonna do the same rectangle. So here I'm gonna put the coordinates and 25, and this time I want to just place it below the first label. and then I'm gonna give the first the same variables that I had before, and then the name of the button is gonna be button. Right, we're gonna do the toggle later. Because yeah, the if statement was actually for the button switch. So we're also going to specify an else. So this button, if we're pressing the button, this piece of code, I'm going to put a comment here on pressed, um, on not pressed, right? So this part of the code is going to get executed when I'm pressing the button and when I'm not pressing the button. So let's see if it's working, and if it's working, we can just put some code there, right? So we're having an error. Let's see, what am I missing? Right, I'm missing a parenthesis there. That's okay. Right, so we have this button. It's not doing anything right now, but we could definitely put some piece of code there, like print um, click or pressed. And then if it's not pressed, we're gonna just print not pressed. Right? So the thing is that right now you'll see that it's actually if you click here, you can actually see the console window, and it's saying not press all the time. So when we press, you can see very quickly that in a way it's showing up pressed. So let's remove this line right now and try it now. So you see that only when we click we get pressed, and if we don't put anything in the code here, that's not going to happen. So basically this part of the code would get executed all the time unless we click the button, right? So the most useful part is this part here, right? So that's a good button. Let's continue. The next element, it's gonna be the toggle, but yeah, I wanted to do the toggle because for the toggle you need to actually create a variable, or it's actually useful to create a variable. So we're gonna just create a variable called toggle bool, just to remind us that it's a boolean, right? So toggle bool, and now we could say toggle bool, the variable that we're creating, equals GUI dot toggle, and here we're gonna put the same bit of the rectangle. And why do we need that variable? Because here in the arguments of the toggle, you actually need to place the variable toggle bool, and then the name of the toggle is gonna be toggle. Right here you can put anything really, but like, so this variable is gonna be changed by the toggle itself, right? So if we click it, it's gonna be on. If we gonna unclick it, it's gonna be off, right? So let's make sure that we have enough parentheses here. Everything seems okay. Let's see. And you see that we forgot to it's there, but we forgot to kind of change the coordinates. So it's actually showing it on top of other things. So I'm following like a plus 25 rule. So I'm going to say 75 now. I could say maybe 100 here if I want to just skip a little bit of extra space for this button. So you see that I have this toggle. So I could just print out the value of toggle bool, right? So if I print toggle bool to see what's going on, you see that it's false, and if I turn it on, it's true. Turn it off, it's on, true, off, false, right? So very straightforward, the toggle, and it's very, very useful. And the last one that I'm going to show, especially because I like to use it a lot for tweaking and on-game kind of alterations of all sorts of variables, is the slider. So for that one, we will actually also do a variable, right? So we're going to do a variable slider 1, and we're going to say it's a type float, right? So slider 1, it's going to be GUI dot horizontal slider, and here again we have to just specify the rectangle, comma the variable that we're going to be using, slider 1, right? And then the name of the slider, or basically, no, here we don't have to specify the name of the slider. We're going to specify the numbers between which the slider operates, right? So the minimum value for the slider and the maximum value for the slider. So we're going to say 0, 1, and this is going to be a slider that moves between those two, right? And that's pretty good. Let's also remember to change this line of code here that says 100, so we're going to put 150 just to give a bit of extra spacing in the Y. Remember that the coordinate starts on 0, 0 on the top left, right? So on the top left of your window, and it starts going down in Y, right? So bigger Y, it's down, and the X, we're going to keep it the same, right? So maybe it's difficult to see, but when you put it in white background, you can see the slider, right? So I can just move the slider back and forth, but I don't have any kind of information around this guy, right? So, and one thing you could do, oops, one thing you could do is actually let's check the information of the slider by combining the slider with a new label, right? So let's place this copy this label and put it down here. And what we're gonna do is just mix a little bit of string with the information of the slider. So we're gonna say slider 1 space 2 points space, or just 2 points and space, and then we're gonna say plus and the value of the slider itself, right? So this plus here is actually adding these strings together. This is a string, and then this will be converted into a string and presented just beside the information of the slider. So we just need to take care of where we want to place this stuff. We could maybe put it in 150, right? The same Y, but maybe we want to put it in 175 in X. So let's try that and see what we're getting, right? Also, maybe I'm interested in just changing, just because it wasn't a good color to work with, but the main camera has a black background, and maybe I want to do a gray background so I can see the slider, right? So you see that I have this label that says slider 1 and it says 0, right? But if I start moving it, now it's actually altering the information of the slider. So you can start combining these things around and then just like do all sorts of nice stuff. And in this case, it's pretty good to see the value of the slider displayed, right? Right. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, we could just like make it look nicer, like put it closer, and things like that. But in general, these user interface elements are very useful, especially if you're kind of doing a small prototype of your game and to start kind of sketching things around. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, and then in the next tutorial we're gonna see how to wire some of this information, how to access from another object the information of the GUI that we are creating. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys soon.